All right, so today we're going to be talking about Lila and her friend Stacy and their new friend, Samira Nazar. So Lila lives right off campus. It's literally right across the street from her school, which is called, what's her school called? Pine Oak University.
Okay.
So Lila always does this over dick around thing. You know, since she's right across the street from Pine Oak University, she'll just shoot the breeze. She'll do a whole bunch of extra stuff that she really shouldn't be doing, like she should be getting ready. And then she'll look at the time and she'll be like, oh, I have to go to class. So she goes downstairs, she gets her stuff, she steps out, and she walks over to the street that she has to cross to get to school. Except they're currently doing construction, which means nobody, pedestrian nor driver, can cross that street. Now, keep in mind this class that Lila's about to go to is her philosophy class. She is not doing well at all. She can't afford to be late. She can't afford to deal with her professor's scrutiny. She can't afford to have to take the long way to get to class. So she goes up to one of the construction workers, bold, brazen, and she's like, is there any way, is there a path, like a safe way for me to walk across the street? I have to get to class. This construction worker, deadpan, no emotion, clearly hates his life, says no, you cannot. So she turns around in a huff and she sees her best friend, Stacy, coming down the steps as well, dropping all of her shit because she too is late. Stacy's a very punctual student. She's a good student. She's passing all of her classes. She just doesn't like being late. So she goes up to Stacy and she lets her know what's going on with the construction. Stacy down there has a meltdown. She's like, okay, well then we're just gonna have to take Epstein Street. Epstein Street will literally cause them to walk at least a total of 7 minutes. There are two other options though that will probably take them maybe like 15 minutes total. And those other two ways are the ways that Lila prefers, because those other two ways are not attached to weird, spooky stories, which is what Epstein Street holds a history of. People always say, you know, when I went there, things were never the same. I saw things, I heard things. And Lila doesn't like those things. Stacy doesn't believe in those things. So she's like, no. We're not doing all of that. We're late. We're taking Epstein Street. I'm not playing with you. So Stacy begins her journey. She's already walking ahead of her, and Lila is, you know, going back and forth with herself. And she's like, you know what? This is ridiculous. She's right. This stuff doesn't exist. I have to get to class. I'm failing. So they're walking. Stacy begins her stories, her chronicles, her boyfriend chronicles. You know, today she loves him. Tomorrow, we don't know. And Lila's only like half listening because, you know, she's not really interested in walking down Epstein Street. They're not quite there yet. They're on their way, but we all know that the minute they turn onto that street, you know, things are going to get a little weird. So they get there, they get to their turn, and Stacy continues, and Lila's standing there. And of course, Stacy turns around and looks at her and rolls her eyes, and she's like, we don't have time for this. We have to go. So they continue their journey. And they're maybe like 30 seconds into walking, and she's like, all right, okay. You know, she's having an internal conversation, Lila, with herself. It's fine. It's fine. I'm overthinking it. It's fine. I'm fine. So she starts to engage in her conversation with Stacy a little bit more. She starts listening a little bit more. And maybe about 2 minutes into the walk, she feels a little bit of a breeze, a little bit of a draft, a chill. And so she asks Stacy, like, did you feel that? Or was it just me or what? So Stacy, obviously completely being over all of the myths and all that nonsense, she's like, okay, cut it out. Like, stop. There was no draft, no chill, no breeze. It's in your head. So she was like, all right, you might be right. I'm OD. We have audience. Oh, it's just a dog that just agreed with my story. Moving forward, Stacy was like, nah, you're ODing. This is too much. You're doing too much. There was no draft. There was no breeze. There was no chill. Relax. Let me finish my story. So Lila's like, all right, fine, whatever. You're right. It's all in my head. I'm doing too much. So, she starts to try to engage in conversation with her a little bit more, but to be honest, she's still a little on edge. And they start to walk past this diner that was really like popping back in the day. It's called the Nick's Diner. And it's clearly been abandoned. There are like, vines growing into the walls, the brick walls, and then the only thing that's like lit up is the N in the entire name, which is Nick's Diner. And Lila's distracted. She's just staring at the diner. Stacy's still telling her about, her boyfriend issues. And Lila swears at one point she hears footsteps. So she turns around. She's a little startled. And so she looks at Stacy and she's like, I know you heard that. I swear I heard footsteps. Stacy is completely over it. She's like, I'm not doing this with you again. God forbid we have to take this way again. I'm doing it alone. You're doing the most. So she's like, all right, fine. I'm going to relax. They continue their walk. Maybe about 30 seconds later, she hears a very kind voice say, excuse me. And so they turn around and it's this beautiful African-American woman wearing her hijab. And she's like, sorry guys, I'm just trying to get to school. Is this the fastest way? Can I follow you guys? So Lila relaxes a little bit. She's like, yeah, we're all pretty much stuck taking this way because of the construction. So this beautiful woman introduces herself as Samira Nazar. They start small talk. They start conversing. They're asking one another questions. What's your major? What are you into? What are you trying to become? What are you doing with your life? So Lila's major is sociology, and she's currently taking a philosophy class that she's failing, which we talked about. Lucky for her, Samira's major is philosophy. So she's like, oh my God, can you be my tutor? Please, Jesus, help us. So Samira very kindly and humbly agrees. She's like, yeah, of course. Philosophy is such a breeze for me. Professor, what's the professor's name? Professor Trevor. Professor Trevor is my favorite professor. That's what Samira says. And she's like, oh my God, I'm taking his class now. He hates me. That's what Lila says. Because I'm failing. She's failing. So Samira's like, no worries. I got you. I can help you. I can help you pass this class. So they continue their walk. They're all continuing their small talk. And, they're starting to get to know one another. She's like, oh, okay, Samira's cool. They finally get to the street where they can cross construction free. Stacy's gone with the wind. She's like, I'm done with y'all. I need to get to class. And then Samira says, we'll exchange info later. It was a pleasure meeting you. I look forward to tutoring you. Lila is in relief. She makes it to class. Her professor pulls her aside and he's like, you do know that in order for you to learn, you have to be inside the classroom. Lila says, okay, well, you'll be happy to know that I found a tutor. And so, because he's a philosophy professor, he's like, who did you find to tutor you? Because I don't know, there's not a whole lot of hope for you, especially if you're going to continue showing up to my class late. And she was like, well, her name is Samira. And he's like, Samira, that name sounds so familiar. What's her last name? And he was like, Lila says that her name is Samira Nazar. I'm sure you know her. She said that you are her favorite professor. So he squints his eyes and his head jerks back a little bit. And he was like, well, I'm sure we're not talking about the same Samira Nazar, but the only person that I can remember with that name passed away several years ago in that tragic accident in the diner on Epstein Street. Lila shakes her head. She's like, no. I literally just spoke to her. She's going to tutor me. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure. That sounds great. And so Lila gets a little skeptical and she's like, well, can you remember what she looks like? You know, this person that passed away. And he's like, yeah, let me pull up the article, this old article. He, you know, pulls it up and zooms in on Samira Nazar. And it has this little caption underneath of her picture, basically stating that she fatally passed away from a gunshot to the head in this tragic accident that took place in the diner on Epstein Street. This beautiful woman that she just met, that is supposed to be her tutor, is apparently no longer amongst the living. So she's shaking her head and she's like, okay, that's interesting. Okay. So then the professor's like, okay, look, you got to get in the classroom. We've already started. You've taken up enough of my time. So they get into the classroom. He continues his lecture. She sits down and she looks over at the door and she sees Samira offer her a kind wave, and she goes on about her day. The end. That's it. That's all I got for y'all.
When she gonna show up to class? That's what we all want to know. When she gonna show up to class? What?
Oh my God.
Yeah, ghosts and stuff, man.
I mean, that's my story. So that's all I got for you.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thank you for joining me.
Epstein Street Part 2. No? Yeah.
I suppose, yes.
Okay.
We'll get it going. We'll get it going.
Alright, cool.